Okay. First of all, Paul Pivawer is going to give a talk on, originally was Benedict Arnold. He's going to change it to the parallel life of two traders. He's going to
I can't hear
Chelsea Manning.
can't hear a thing.
Chelsea Manning. I got my hearing aids on.
You have to.
Let me reread this. Hold this. You hear it now? Okay. He's going to, the parallel lives of Chelsea Manning and Benedict Arnold. He indicates that they're very close, and we'll see. Now, Paul's background. He's raised in the Bronx. He graduated Theodore Roosevelt High School, graduated CCNY Mechanical Engineer, went to the University of Southern California, Master's in Mechanical Aerospace, secret clearance for clients of the U.S. Air Force, rocket propulsion engineer, U.S. Defense Industry contractors, contracting for U.S. Air Force and the NASA, Douglas Aircraft, worked Douglas Aircraft in California, Grumman Aircraft in Bethpage, Long Island, nuclear utility industry, Con Edison, New York Power, infrastructure, construction, various contractors, site safety plan examiner, New York City Department of Buildings, high-rise buildings, out-of-borough shopping centers also. He's got quite a varied background. He's now going to talk on this subject. Thank you.
Good morning. The parallel lives of two American traders. I'm going to try to stick to 20 minutes for the first one, and then take a minute break. We'll just get a couple of people stand up and deep breaths, and then 20 minutes again. Is that okay with you, Irene? You got a time, you got to go to the 1:30, right, and set up and... Okay, that's the schedule. Benedict Arnold was a Revolutionary War hero and first American trader. Chelsea Manning, born December 17, 1987, as a male and became a transgender female, and she released 750,000 classified and unclassified documents to WikiLeaks' Julian Assange. I originally started just on Benedict Arnold, and I looked a little bit on the internet for Chelsea, and I almost fell off my chair because it was the same life, repeated 240 years later. So I can't separate one from the other. But first of all, I'd like to thank all war veterans and families, past, present, future, for what you have given to America and to keep it safe for all of us. And my give back, I can't buy any more of those red poppies anymore. I haven't seen them for years. So I'm going to give, I'm not able to burn the discs, so I'm going to give the people who are computer experts the opportunity to burn discs for all the veterans, and Veterans Day should be 365 a year. And if you don't like what I say, you could throw it as a frisbee, you could show it to your grandchildren, and if you know some military personnel who are influential, show it to them also. Okay, let's start with the main overview first. Let's start from youth and up, the negative items of both of these two traders. They both came from troubled families. Benedict's father was the 5th generation of a Benedict Arnold. He was the 6th, and the father was an alcoholic and lost the wealth of the previous 5 generations. The town people gossiped, and the family name was ruined. He grew up as an angry, hostile young man, Benedict. His coping mechanism in childhood was public stunts to prove he was better than everybody else. At age 12, example, he walked across a burning roof building to the astonishment of his schoolmates and teacher, just to prove, I'm better than you. Chelsea now, she was born in 1987, originally as Bradley, and she was born with fetal alcohol syndrome. Her mother just drank all the time until I think eventually committed suicide later on. She was bullied by schoolmates because when she grew up to be a man in transition as a homosexual man, she was...
Behind the chair.
Pardon? Can you hear?
I'm telling him, he dropped the paper.
Okay, okay. At age 21, she was 5 foot 0 inches and 105 pounds, a runt from her alcoholic parents. She had numerous fights and altercations and always fought back. Even in the school Pledge of Allegiance, she refused to mention God in the Pledge of Allegiance as a young child. Very opinionated, very political. Okay, continuing on the negatives. Benedict, he had no respect for authority. He made his own rules. He bristled at any criticism. In his late teens, at age 18, he runs away without permission to fight in the French-Indian Wars, and he receives notice that his mother is dying. He goes AWOL, returns home, hides in the attic, and is never captured. Go back to Chelsea. She's abandoned by schoolmates on a camping trip. What they do one morning is pack up early, pack up the tents, and move out and leave her in isolation and abandonment. At age 17, she becomes an openly gay man, but hasn't taken all the chemicals yet. Positive items for both of them. Benedict Arnold, very, very smart, quick learner, hard worker, ferocious determination to succeed. His physical attributes, he's 5 foot 6, a little below normal height at that time. He's very muscular and well-formed, great endurance, and he excels in running, horse racing, fencing, shooting, boxing, and he could jump over a wagon, never touching hand or foot to the wood. I don't know how high the wagon is, but I'm not sure if LeBron can do it today. He's slowing down. He's also a graceful ice skater. He has long, always for attention. He always wants to be the center of attention. He liked danger. He was bold and reckless, loved competition. Going back to Chelsea now. Pardon?
Where did he grow up?
Where did he grow up? In Connecticut.
Okay.
Okay. Eventually he gets to New Haven, but we'll get to that later. Chelsea is very smart. At age 10, she creates a website. At age 10, PowerPoint. She wins a grand prize contest 3 years in a row. She also wins top prize in the 6th grade in the Oklahoma statewide quiz. She excelled in the saxophone, science, and computers. Very articulate, very opinionated, very political. She aspires to become a PhD in physics under the GI Bill, so she enlists in the Army. Okay, her military career was 2007 to 2012. She had her basic training in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. She couldn't pass it the first time because she was not physically capable or mentally capable. In fact, she would tell the drill instructor what to do, and all the other soldiers said, "You're General Manning, sir." That's what they thought of her, because she was telling them what to do. She was called a bully, a faggot, etc. She screamed at everybody who criticized her. There was a decision to revoke her, there was a decision to discharge her by the brass. How can you have this person in the Army when you got to have order in the Army? But it was revoked for some reason. She did receive a number of awards, 5 awards, 3 medals, 2 ribbons. The Army Service Ribbon, the National Defense Service Medal, the Iraq Campaign Medal, the Global War on Terrorism Medal, and the Overseas Service Ribbon. And she had ongoing contact with a gender counselor while in the military and mental health counseling, but the bullying kept persisting. I don't know why they didn't give her a therapy dog. That might have helped in addition to the counseling. But her Middle East working conditions, and they needed her in the Middle East and Iraq and Afghanistan because there was a shortage of top computer people, and she was the top. She worked 14 to 15-hour night shifts in a tightly packed, dimly lit room. She was persistently late for work, so they penalized her 1 day off per week. They took it away. She responds by overturning the table and damaging the computer. A sergeant moved Manning away from a weapons rack. Imagine if she had taken all the weapons, the automatic rifles, and shot everybody in the room. She's capable of doing this. So somebody quickly made her, subdued her. Several witnesses, and then pinned her down, and they dragged her out of the room. Several witnesses to the incident believe her access to sensitive material should be withdrawn. Later, they found her in a fetal position in a storage cupboard with a knife at her foot and a vinyl chair with the words cut in with the knife, "I want." Very powerful words. I'm not a psychologist, but boy, this person shouldn't be handling sensitive information. A few hours later, she punched a female intelligence analyst in the face. So you know that this woman is a fighter. The Army psychiatrist recommended a discharge. And while this was being processed, she was isolated from all other personnel. They didn't want to go near her. She was miserable and alone, and she was ripe for the picking of a WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks did not advertise that there was Julian Assange. It was just on the computer. And she didn't even know who she was corresponding with, nor did Julian Assange know who she was. She needed a friend. As again, a therapy dog would have solved the whole... She was looking for a friend. She was isolated. This is what the American Indians do when they wanted someone to pay for their crimes. They didn't put them in jail. They put them in abandonment. And they abandoned them from the tribe, and they would die eventually. Although other tribes would kill them or whatever, mental problems too. She leaks the 750,000 documents, classified and unclassified, and memos also. I don't know if the Army still knows what they got out there. They haven't sorted it out. Computers are great, but there's so much information, you can't separate the Miltedicker from the Fleischedicker here, is what it is. I don't know how they're going to do it. You'll have to upgrade or review this, maybe with artificial intelligence, can assist in making decisions daily, weekly, and sort it out, who's going to handle what, and at which levels. You know, if you have somebody who says, and puts a message, I'm going, or Maria, the base nails person who does your nails and hairs for the female, she's going back to Guatemala for 2 weeks because her mother is dying. You don't put that in with, I'm going to have an airstrike in Baghdad next week, and this is the route they're taking. So that's what you got. And the thing is, they're overwhelmed. I can't really say to the computer people, sort it out. You're going to need artificial intelligence and a staff to monitor this. That's one solution on the computer gymnastics. Eventually, she gets charged with violating the Espionage Act, stealing government property, violation of the Computer Fraud Act, and multiple counts of disobeying orders. She gets a 35-year sentence. This is what you said. She ought to be in jail a long time. Obama somehow, I'm not sure of the math done in my Wikipedia, but he commutes her sentence. Currently, she's out of prison, residing in Maryland, awaiting an upcoming retrial. Now we have three competing forces here. We have the U.S. Army, who may be embarrassed. They would like to lock her up and get rid of her. You have the transgender people. She eventually went transgender. Supporting her. She's living in Maryland with probably pro bono or other attorneys. She's going to fight back. She's a fighter. My suggestion, if possible, is could they come to some sort of deal, because this is an embarrassment to the country. I love the military. There are smart people in the military, but even they screw up. General MacArthur, the highest grade point average in the history of West Point, a very smart guy, but Truman disagreed with him, and Truman said, they said to Truman, "You called him an SOB." He said, "That's right, but that's not why I fired him. He was disrespectful to the commander-in-chief, not because he was an SOB, but by the way, 75% of all generals are SOBs. That's what he said. Quote, unquote, Harry Truman, my favorite president. He had guts. Okay, so you got the three competing forces, the U.S. military, Chelsea, who's going to fight back if she doesn't commit suicide first. She might. And the transgender people. How can we take this and not make it an embarrassment? My suggestion is you make a deal that Hillary, you got to, not Hillary, Chelsea, Freudian slip. You gotta help us out here and help yourself too. We're gonna give you a second chance on the merry-go-round, but it's gonna be behind bars. So maybe you do this for 7 years behind bars, 20 years total more to go, and you get a task force together. Who's on this task force? Some computer experts, psychologists, and you raise money, and you get a big website, and you give the transgender people a chance too on the merry-go-round to participate maybe in the Army, the Navy, etc. You raise money. You go to billionaire Mike Bloomberg and say, "Hey, you don't like guns. You don't like people shooting people." Well, this is bullying. That's why you have the problems. These people are bullied. They go into a school in Parkland and they shoot everybody. Yeah, we ought to have better mental health. Well, she's got the mental health problems. You got the money, Bloomberg. How about $5 billion for a cup of coffee? $5 billion? What do you mean? You know, there's all the people who are going to be killed in the history of the world for the next, from the first one was Cain and Abel, right? Yeah. And I don't know how long, another 10, 20, 100,000 years. So you're going to give everybody a cup of coffee with inflation, and Starbucks is already from 5 cents a cup to $5 in Starbucks. And while you're at it, Amazon.com throwing another $5 billion, and Bill Gates another $5 billion. So you got a lot of money. You could hire people to sort all this out while you're behind bars. You're not going on any campaign trail in 5-star hotels. And after 7 years, we're going to have the junior judges. Who are the junior judges? The junior Supreme Court are the kids dying of cancer in St. Jude's and in other hospitals, the Shriners. They're going to be your judges because they're impartial. So you think you had it bad bullying? They may not make it to age 10 or 12. They never knew what it was like to hit a stickball and play stickball and hit it 2.5 sewers. I did. All right, so you got to give, they're impartial. Maybe you'll have a friend with some of these kids and help them and help yourself. That's one suggestion. The other is on the computers. She gave away the password, so maybe you need a computer cop for very sensitive information after it's sorted out to have secondary and tertiary passwords. And that's going to cost money. You don't want it to slow down the efforts. That's a problem. But we have to do something there. And also a white towel committee. You know, if a boxer's in the ring and he's getting battered, they throw in the white towel. Or the manager comes out to the mound and relieves the starting pitcher. Somebody's got to have that. So it's a lot of things that can be done. The word is improve, give you a second chance, or you could go to rock and fight it all the way, but I think it's better if you improve because you don't want to go down as the second Benedict Arnold. You know, his name is you Benedict Arnold, you. They'll be saying, you Chelsea Manning, you. So that's your legacy, that's your choice. Okay, how much time did I use on the timer, which I stole from the kitchen? Okay, we'll start the details of Benedict Arnold. Anybody want to stand up and take a breath? Maybe I do. Okay, Benedict Arnold, as he becomes a young man, his mother had passed away, a relative gives him the opportunity to work as an apprentice in his apothecary shop. He eventually borrows money and he opens his own shop in New Haven, Connecticut, and he sells medicines, jewelry, books, maps, cosmetics, and even an aphrodisiac called Francis Female Alexa. Doesn't say what it is in this book, but I don't know if King's Pharmacy sells it. Okay, he was a very serious, responsible person, and he's the head of the family, and he sails off on long voyages to Great Britain for goods, and the Caribbean for goods, and his younger sister is dating a Frenchman who he doesn't like. So he wants to get rid of him, so he literally busts down his door and he shoots over his head to scare him, and he runs him out of town. Well, British taxes are now rising. 1766, 10 years before the start of the Revolutionary War. Mr. Bowles reports non-payment of taxes of Benedict to the authorities. He doesn't like this, Mr. Bowles, so he has friends. They bust down Mr. Bowles' door, and they drag him to the whipping post, give him 40 lashes, and they dump him on a muddy road. Arnold was tried and found guilty by the townspeople, but he received only a token punishment, 50 shillings. The people of New Haven were behind Arnold. He became a leader to the rising opposition of British taxes. He's a celebrity. In February 1767, he marries Margaret Mansfield. They have 3 sons eventually. He's a successful merchant. 1770, Boston Massacre. 1775, Boston Tea Party. 1775 again, Lexington and Concord, the shot-heard world in the world, the Revolutionary War. This is what he needs. He wants to restore the family name. Okay, so a week later, after the war starts, and he leads the first military attack in U.S. history in Cambridge, Massachusetts. A week before, he was a merchant. 6 days later, he wants to attack Fort Ticonderoga, and on the way, he meets Ethan Allen and the Green Mountain Boys. Ethan Allen is 6'6", he's 5'6". They each want to have the credit for the victory that is upcoming. So they negotiate. He looks up to the 6'6" Allen, and they say, we'll both do it as a joint effort. Let's go get him, and they rush toward the fort, and he outruns with the longest stride, the 6'6" tall Ethan Allen. It's hand-to-hand combat. The battle is over in 10 minutes, and he has no time to wait around for accolades and praise. Benedict, that is. He decides to head north to attack the British in Canada. He captures, in St. John's, he captures a British ship. Then he goes on to Quebec, the walled city, very hard to conquer. He conquers it, he's promoted to general, and his men are victorious, but they're physically and emotionally spent, and they need supplies. So he retreats south to Montreal, and he gets supplies there, but no money, so he issues IOUs to all the merchants and just takes what he needs. Somehow the IOUs get mishandled, and they have to leave because the British are coming, and he takes all the supplies with him. The merchants say, he's a thief. He stole our goods. So that follows him, that he's a looter. That's the first accusation that he has against him. Eventually, he's appointed commander of the lakes. That's Lake Champlain and George. Dentist friend is here. He knows the area well. And he builds America's first naval fleet. And simultaneously, an army court is formed to investigate Arnold's robbing the shopkeepers of Montreal. And in the hearing, he is very disrespectful to the court. He challenges the judges, all of them, I don't know how many, but all of them, to a duel. They requested Arnold be arrested, but now the British are coming, they're here already. They need him, so the court-martial is dissolved because the British are right there. There's Battle of Valcour Island, Lake Champlain, October 1776. His small fleet of ships outmaneuvers the larger naval forces of the British. 15 U.S. ships versus 34 British, plus the British have hundreds of soldiers and Indians on the land adjacent to the lake. But he outmaneuvers them. Then comes the Battle of Danbury, Connecticut, 1777, and he's victorious, and he's promoted to Major General. And what do they give him, Congress? A thank you and a horse. I don't even know if it was a white horse. It doesn't say. Congress did not restore Benedict's honor versus slander and libel charges by others. So he says, I quit. He resigns from the army. Then the British are coming in full force, and Congress pleads with him, please help us. So he rejoins the army, and then comes the famous Battle of Saratoga, New York, 1777. He rushes Arnold to the thick of the fight with his usual recklessness and acts like a madman. He's wounded in the leg. Eventually, he has to have a wooden cast, and the leg deteriorates to 2 inches shorter than the other leg. All the credit for this victory is not given to Arnold, but his superior officer, commanding officer Gates. He gets no credit. At this point, he should be retired. Right? You got to throw in the white towel, and given money for his business, which in New Haven is failing, and he's given his left leg. All right, but that doesn't happen. British finally end up in Philadelphia, and there's a British captain, John Andre. So I'm going to call him Andre, the British captain, and Benedict Arnold I'll refer to as Benedict, because the Arnold and the Andre almost sound alike, and there's a lot of twists and turns. So we're going to have Benedict from the U.S. and Andre. All right. There's not much doing in Philadelphia at the time as far as war, and it's almost like a social connection. The British Andre, he's producing plays and entertainment, and he meets Judge Shippen's beautiful daughter, the 18-year-old. She's the most beautiful woman in all of Philadelphia, Peggy Shippen. And they hit it off, dating, whatever. And eventually the British pull out of Philadelphia and move to New York City, which is a stronger base for operations. And now marches in the American Army with Benedict Arnold, with his left leg propped up on a carriage. That's how he enters Philadelphia. While in Philadelphia, he displays a luxurious lifestyle. all sorts of deals with merchants. Although not illegal technically, they're very questionable ethically. And he felt, I'm entitled for it. I gave my left leg and my business for this country. I'm entitled to take whatever I can get, whatever shady dealing there is. And he's being accused again, and he asked for Washington's help. Well, George Washington stays neutral, because if he picks the Philadelphia merchants and Congress on one side, and the other side is Arnold, if he favors one, he's got a problem. And he has a water fight, so I can't, fault George Washington, or nobody can. But he's mad at Washington also because he didn't get backed by him, and that's what leads him to contact the British and flip to the other side. And the way they communicated was excellent. They did it by regular mail, invisible ink. How do you have invisible ink? You take onion juice with a quill, you write you a message, and when heated to the flame or behind a nearby flame, it becomes visible. That's one method. The second ingenious idea they had was the sender and receiver have the same book, say a legal book or any book. And if it said between the lines in invisible ink, 154, 2010, that meant page 154, line 20, word 10. A slow and tedious process, but how can you break a code like that? Invisible ink and a decoding. But life was slower then. Mountain men would go away for 2 or 3 years to hunt for beaver pelts and wouldn't see their families. It wasn't in nanoseconds. Okay, so that's how he communicated and negotiated his conditions for money, and he wanted to eventually be a British general and a knight, dubbed knighthood, and maybe a title of nobility thrown in for extra. And he eventually did acquit himself of a court-martial for his thefts. Of course, he was a very good lawyer too, even though he never went to law school. He was very argumentative and smart. So he was home free now, and his plan was, I'll go to West Point, which is not yet a military academy because there's no country. There's not, it's just a military fort. I'll ask Washington to be commandant of West Point or the head of West Point, and I'll make up plans for the downfall or the British to attack it, and then I'll exchange that for money and all these titles. That was his plan, and they were communicating by letter back and forth, negotiating the terms of this deal. Well, the plan was for Andre, the British, I guess he got promoted, I think he's a major now, to take a boat up the Hudson River 50 miles from New York City to West Point, be rowed to a secret location about 7 miles west of West Point, and meet with Arnold, and the plans and monies would be exchanged. Okay. All was going pretty good. They met, and Arnold gave him the plans and left, and British Andre now is waiting for his rowers to come and pick him up and take him to the main ship. Well, they were tired, these guys, and lazy. They fell asleep on the ship and never picked them up, and then their ship was attacked, and he's stranded. He couldn't call Uber. He was stranded. He didn't know what to do. He should have waited because he was given instructions by his commander, his superior. 1, never go behind American lines, don't carry any incriminating documents, and don't admit you're British. Well, he violated all of them. He had a horse with him. I don't know how the horse was on the rowboat. I don't know, maybe he kneeled down so he wouldn't tip over the boat. The author, a very good author, but I question that. How did the horse not tip over the rowboat? I guess he was a trained horse. Okay. Eventually, during his travels south, British Andre, somewhere around Elmsford, he gets picked up by 3 rogue thieves. And they want to rob him of money. They strip search him, and they find the plans of the map of West Point in his boot, in his sock. And they question, you know, whatever money he had was not significant, but they see the plans. And they question him, are you a British soldier? And they, I guess, knock him around a few times, and he says yes. They think, we'll get a lot of money, we'll turn him over to the Americans, which they do, and eventually Andre is hanged by the neck. Handsome young man. That was the end of him. In the meantime, Benedict gets word that something happened to British Andre, and he better get out of town quick. And simultaneous to that, George Washington meets with General Lafayette of the French, and they want to discuss war plans with Benedict. So he has a small security force, General Washington, and he's going to ride to meet Benedict in West Point. And as he's riding up, getting near, a messenger comes and hands Washington the map and the written notes, and he recognizes the handwriting right away. Now, why didn't Benedict use the invisible ink and the code for the notes? I don't know. It could be a couple of reasons. It doesn't say in the book I'm reading. He may have felt he handed the relay baton in good faith to the next person, and the British are responsible for that. Or maybe there were no onions up in West Point. I don't know. I'm trying to find some oranges in Florida that are good. And I keep asking at Publix, where are the Florida oranges all the time? Because they were better when I ate the Florida oranges in New York. All right. But anyway, he escapes. His wife, Peggy, who's much younger than him, by the way, he's about 20 years older than her. She was the go-between the British, because she had the British boyfriend, and now she's the second wife of Benedict. She is found in tears when Washington knocks on the cottage door, and Washington sees a beautiful woman, the most beautiful in all of Philadelphia, in tears, and he says, okay, you're an innocent victim, you're not part of this. That's his conclusion. The power of women, huh? Okay, Helen of Troy again, or whatever. Eventually she joins Arnold, it doesn't say exactly how, with their children, and he now is a British general. And the Americans, or the colonialists, are furious. And just by the stroke of luck, a disaster did not happen. But they're enraged, and they pull together, and they fight harder, and eventually the war is won. Before that happens, somehow there's a plot to kidnap Arnold from his New York City home, but he's already on the move. He's heading south to Virginia to attack as a British general, and even Thomas Jefferson has to vacate his house. He sees them coming, the British are coming, he gets out, but he's not involved in the war. And while he's a general for the British Army, the other British generals don't like him. What kind of a man deserts his country for money? In the history of the military tradition, you stink. That's the way you feel. So his generals, subordinates, nobody likes him. So the war is over. The only one who likes him when he returned, he now, after the war is over, he goes to Britain. The only one who likes him is King George III. They feel the war is not over yet. They could go back and win, but they're wrong. And finally, in 1783, the British sign a treaty, and the U.S. is an independent nation. Now people still don't like him in Britain. All right? And he's vilified, and his whole object in life was to restore the family name. He's hated in America, now he's hated in Britain. So he goes to New Brunswick, Canada. And why the Americans can't extradite him, capture him, kidnap him, I don't know. It's not explained in the book. An excellent author, but he doesn't explain that. I question it. You know, maybe they were just cleaning up after the war, trying to figure out Washington's expense account for all the hotels he stayed in. He slept everywhere. Okay, he's also shunned and vilified in New Brunswick, Canada, by the locals, but the Americans don't do anything about it. Finally, at age 60, he goes back to Britain, and at this time with his 2-inch shorter leg, gout in both legs, ulcers, heart condition, breathing problems, he dies at age 60. And 3 years later, the beautiful Peggy Arnold, the former Peggy Shipton, at age 44, she dies from cancer. I don't know how they knew about cancer at that time. 1899, Swibb invented the first aspirin, right? I think. So, all that's left of Benedict is a tall boot sculpture of his left leg, injured left leg in Saratoga, New York, in memory of a brilliant, it says, in memory of a brilliant soldier of the Continental Army. Nowhere is the name of Benedict Arnold mentioned. He was talented, egotistical, contemptuous, and he transitioned from hero to traitor. The family name is infamous for eternity. Again, I'd like to say to Chelsea, if I could, they say, you Benedict Arnold, you want to leave your legacy as you Chelsea Manning, you? But you got a second chance on the merry-go-round. Think about it. You'll be behind bars because, you know, you can't have a disorderly military, but try to work it out. I leave you, veterans, with this. If you know anybody in the military, in the brass, who has influence and power, send it up. If you don't like it, you could toss it, but I don't think your dog would grab it in the mouth. It may hurt its jaw. You got to get a rubber frisbee. So I do thank all the veterans and their families for all you have done, and hopefully we'll do and not forget it. So I'm going to leave this with Erwin, and we'll go from there, and I'll let you know.
You take
That time was just about up. But don't tell my wife